Hello everyone, Ogre27Kane here today, and we're going to do a review of Dead or School for the Nintendo Switch. This is a pretty interesting Metroidvania / run and gun RPG. Let's do an overview, find out what it's all about. Well, first up, this game came to me by way of some of my viewers who recommended it as a pretty interesting Metroidvania. I didn't really know what to expect out of it, but it turned out to be a pretty darn good game. It's definitely a lot heavier on the RPG side than it is the Metroidvania, but it has elements of both, and it really impressed me. It is Japanese only, but there is English on the cartridge, and it's worth the import. Well, one thing I do have to mention is that this game is very heavily Japanese influenced. A lot of the gameplay and a lot of the artwork and a lot of the tropes and story animations and everything you're going to see are very traditionally based on Japanese mythos and lore and some of the other more risque things. So if some of that stuff is not your style, this may not be your game. This is definitely one for people like me who enjoy a lot of Japanese culture. So sit back and enjoy the ride, and let's start out with the first category now, the gameplay. Well, the gameplay in this is what you'd expect out of an RPG / Metroidvania. The world is pretty large and has lots of different things to explore, but it's definitely more based on the RPG factor of the game. You want to kill as many enemies as possible and gain as much experience as possible to level up your character and get new abilities. Yes, the side quests are fun and they're not very unique in the sense that you don't do anything different other than just kill enemies, but you do get different characters that help join your quest, and they do add certain perks. You get through different areas and get new story elements, and some of them have their own side quests as well. So the gameplay is definitely a mixture of both, but it's a good mixture, I would say. So essentially there's a hub world that you can explore. Then you go from the hub world to each simultaneous area and explore them, unlocking them, getting key cards, helping characters out, doing quests, leveling up. You do have a weapon system in this that upgrades with you as well, and there are 3 different styles of weapons. There are basically machine guns / shotguns, there are swords / greatsword axes, and then there is a bazooka / rocket class. All 3 of these can be equipped at the same time, and all of the projectile weapons have ammunition, so you do have to pay close attention to what you're doing and make sure that you stop off at every save point to load back up. You also have durability on your swords, in which case you can't just beat them into a pulp too. So the game does make you strategize a little bit from area to area to figure out what you're doing. Let's do the story now. Well, the story in this game is your typical post-apocalyptic Neo-Tokyo in the late 21st century. You're a young girl who basically just wants to go to school. So she's finding her way out of the basement, the dwelling, the cellar of the earth where humans have hid for the last 80 years or so, and trying to discover humanity along the way. She meets a lot of cool people and a lot of interesting characters, a lot of fun stuff along the way, and the game is pretty unique in the sense that it allows you a good sense of exploration and discovery and wonder. Each area is just different enough to keep you playing on, and you really do want to see what happens to this character. She's pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little partial to her. Now on top of that, each character that you interact with, whether they come with you or stay there, have their own story elements as well. Some of the characters are more important than others, and some of them offer their own abilities. Some of them are just there for story filler, and some of them are there to intrigue you and make you play on. There are some characters that I haven't even figured out what they're for yet. So there's a lot going on, and the game really wants you to discover each one of their stories. There are little icons hidden throughout the world, and as you figure them out and do the subquests behind it, you'll get that little element that you want. So I highly encourage that you seek out all of the story elements in this game because they make the comic book feel to it that much better. Let's do the next one, graphics and animations now. Well, the graphics serve their purpose. It looks like a comic book, it plays like a comic book, and it feels like a comic book. The thing about it though, is it's a little bit stilted. It's a little bit jerky from time to time. And the animation quality is not terribly great. There's a lot of things going on screen at one time, and I think this causes things to kind of get muddy and look a little off. And frankly, this hurts the graphical appeal of what they're trying to go for. There are a lot of sharp corners and sharp edges going on, and it's really hard to see them when the screen is filled with fire and all kinds of crazy effects. On top of that, the character movement doesn't really look very natural and is kind of stilted. When you're moving behind characters too, there's no special animations for doing different movements or attacks or anything like that. It's very much the same. Now, I'm not mad about this by any way, shape, or form. I know that this was a very small studio that did this, and it's probably a labor of love. I really enjoyed it. And I'm not a big person for graphics, so it did not bother me, but I could see how this would really affect a person's ability to look at this game fairly. The only other thing I need to mention in this game is the frame rate, and the frame rate could definitely benefit from a hefty patch. Let's move on to the combat now. Well, the combat in this game is frankly the highest point and the lowest point to this game. When everything is firing on all cylinders and you have a bunch of weapons that synergize really well, the combat excels. It is absolutely a blast. There are a lot of elements of Dark Souls and Hollow Knight and other games like that with the fast-paced and frenetic nature of it. Now, the huge downside to this is that the collision detection is a little bit wonky, and because there's so many enemies on screen, you're never exactly sure who or what you're hitting. This makes it really difficult to strategize and to separate your attacks amongst the enemies in which you need to use said attacks. There were times that I went into a fight overly confident and got completely destroyed, and other times that I didn't think I stood a chance and I completely annihilated a higher level enemy. Now, a lot of this stuff is not clear on these synergies. You need to figure these out on your own, and that's part of the fun. But it does make the combat a little irritating when you can't figure out what you're supposed to do. So, once again, it's kind of the high and the low. But I'll take it, because frankly it makes this game interesting. So let's do controls and audio now. So the controls are probably the most contentious part of this game for me. And the controls do well enough to serve their purpose, but they're really, really weird and off. As in, the B button is your accept button for everything, and the triggers do all of your attacks. It kind of feels odd. There's not really a significant reason for this, other than maybe for your guns. But having multiple control schemes for multiple weapons is not unheard of in most games, and I don't really understand why they didn't allow you to separate it that way. Using R for your sword definitely feels off, and every time I put this game in, I have to completely rethink the controls. That's kind of the roughest part, so let's talk about the audio now. Well, the audio in this game is pretty freaking awesome. There's a lot of fast-paced and upbeat tracks, a lot of heavy metal and rock and roll, so if you enjoy that kind of music, this is definitely a game to check out. The sound effects are top-notch too. So let's do the conclusion now. Well, in conclusion, if you're a Metroidvania or RPG lover, or you like a good challenging platformer with good combat, this is definitely a must-buy game for me. It's not going to be as high up there as something like Hollow Knight or Death's Gambit, but it is definitely worth the $35 or $40 that you pay for it, and if you decide to download it, it's worth that too. This game impressed me, and I'm pretty happy that people showed it to me. It's not something I would have ever looked at normally on its own, so thanks again, I highly appreciate it. Well, this concludes 2 out of the 3 Metroidvanias that I need to finish to get my next top 10 Metroidvania list done. So I'm almost there, folks, and I'm really enjoying this journey. It has shaken that list up a lot, and it's provided me with a lot of really good material and fun gameplay. Some of these games have turned into some of my favorite games. Ender Lilies, Debtor School, and I'm also finishing another one. I'll surprise you with that one when I get done with it. Well, thank you for watching today's video. It was a blast to make. I upload every single Monday. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. And have yourself a great rest of your day. This is Ogre27 Kane, signing out.